Katya had mastered the art of the strategic blood pressure check. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening at precisely 9 p.m., she would purposefully linger by the loading docks of the abandoned municipal warehouse, the secret entrance to the city's oldest vampire haven, with a fake medical kit in hand. Her sole goal was the chance to accidentally provoke Nicolai, the vampire who haunted her dreams. This particular chilly October night, the city's neon signs cast a cold, flickering light over the damp concrete of the alley. Katia smoothed down her dark jacket, the scent of antiseptic on her hands meant to explain her presence. She had told her brother, Axel, she was studying late for her medical exam. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm as she descended the rusted stairs leading to the loading bay, where the clan's operatives exchanged information. Nicolai had been Axel's best friend since college, a bond Axel believed was based on late-night gaming, but which Katia knew masked centuries of immortal existence. Nicolai was a formidable and deadly force within the clan, a man who moved through the world with lethal control. She had been observing him for years, and now she worked within the network of human liaisons, a position she'd earned purely to be near him. If this tale pulled you into the shadows this moment, don't slip away just yet. Tap like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your presence here keeps the story alive. Katia traced the cold, damp outlines of the loading dock, the air thick with the faint scent of ozone, and something metallic, the signature subtle perfume of the clan. It was 9 p.m., and her fake medical kit, ostentatiously labeled Volunteer Research Team, felt heavy in her hands. This was her turf, the threshold between the mundane world she shared with her brother Axel and the clandestine immortality of Nicolai, her brother's vampire best friend. Tonight, she wasn't here to tease. She was here to provoke. She saw him emerge from the shadows beneath a rusted ventilation unit, the same tall, devastating silhouette she'd studied for years. Nicolai wore the controlled stillness of a predator waiting for the perfect moment. His midnight suit was impeccably cut, a stark contrast to the alley's grime. His silver-pale eyes found hers instantly, a glacial challenge that warmed Katia from the inside out. He had the dangerous beauty of the male in the suit in the uploaded image, lethal, aristocratic, and completely inaccessible. Katia. His voice was low, smooth, and laced with an ancient impatience. You are far from your sector. I told Axel you were studying for your finals, not wandering the perimeter. Katia offered a dismissive shrug, adjusting the strap of her medical bag. I'm just confirming the boundary readings, Nicolai. The last report on the ambient energy was flawed, but since you're here, perhaps you can explain the excessive expenditure of resources on the East End. It's fiscally unsound, even for a tax-exempt entity. She knew his pride in his operational efficiency was one of the few vulnerabilities she could tap into. It was a human argument, designed to make the centuries-old vampire engage on her terms. His lips tightened fractionally, the only physical sign of her success. My resource allocation is not your concern, nor is it subject to human accounting. Everything is subject to accounting, Katia countered, stepping closer so the low-frequency hum of the city lights crackled between them. Or are you saying the clan is running on sentimentality? I thought that emotion was drained out of you centuries ago. The air thickened, turning electric. Nicolai took a calculated step toward her, closing the distance until she could feel the Arctic chill radiating from his expensive clothes. His expression was a perfect, beautiful mask of warning, but his gaze was something else, a flash of hunger she was desperate to confirm. Your curiosity is going to get you killed, Katia, he murmured, his voice now dangerously soft, an absolute promise rather than a threat. Then tell me to leave, she whispered, meeting his challenging stare. Order me to go. Before he could respond, a sterile, high-frequency ringtone sliced through the tension. Nicolai cursed under his breath, drawing a sleek, ancient-looking phone from his jacket. His features hardened as he saw the contact name, Antoine. I am needed, he said, the hunger extinguished, replaced by the rigid control of a soldier. He gave her a final warning look that chilled her to the bone. "Go home, Katia, now. This is not a game." He vanished back into the shadows of the warehouse entrance, leaving Katia standing alone, adrenaline and disappointment warring in her chest. She had pushed him to the very edge of his control, and the clan had snatched him back. The diplomatic mixer was held in a neutral, glass-domed ballroom downtown, a sterile territory where human council members and the city's vampire delegates convened. The tension was thicker than the silk curtains draped across the windows, a palpable mix of fear and forced cooperation. Katia wore a dress of deep emerald silk, a color chosen to complement Nicolai's silver pale eyes and to highlight the dangerous proximity of her skin. She had chosen it with the surgical precision of a field operative, intentionally provocative, yet compliant with the formal dress code. The moment she entered, she felt the shift in the room's energy. Every gaze, both human and undead, felt heavy. But she only cared about one. Nicolai stood near the center, commanding his space even amidst other power players. He was engaged in a discussion with Antoine, the clan leader, a man whose charisma masked a chilling, ancient ruthlessness. Katia could see the rigid control in Nicolai's posture, the perfect blankness of his face, as he navigated the political tightrope of the evening. Then, Nicolai looked up. His eyes, the color of cold, fractured moonlight, found hers. For a millisecond, the facade broke. There was a raw, immediate flash of something dark and hungry that stole the air from Katia's lungs. It was an admission she'd been chasing for years. He ended his conversation with an abrupt, clipped word, leaving a momentarily displeased Antoine mid-sentence. Nicolai crossed the room with the predatory grace she adored, gliding past waiters and delegates as if they were inconvenient statues. He stopped directly in front of her, his presence a shield against the eyes of the room. His voice, dangerously low, was a reprimand. "You are a fool to come here looking like that, Katia. Your recklessness is going to get you killed." "I look like a medical liaison attending a diplomatic function," she countered, her own voice steady despite the rapid pulse thrumming beneath her collarbone. "If I'm reckless, it's only because I'm tired of your rules. Or are you afraid of what your human friends might think?" He grasped her elbow, his touch burning through the silk, and pulled her onto the edge of the polished dance floor where a string quartet was playing a Baroque melody. "You want me to be honest?" He leaned in, his lips brushing the curve of her ear. "You are an agonizing distraction. I see you, I want you, and you are entirely off limits. I want you enough to violate every oath I've taken." Katia's breath hitched. "Then stop pretending nothing is there." Nicolai stopped dancing, his hand gripping her waist so tightly it hurt. His silver eyes were now hard, definitive. "I cannot touch you. You are human. I am bound by the blood, and you are my best friend's sister. Do you think for one moment Axel would forgive me for bringing you into this darkness? The answer is nothing, Katia. Absolutely nothing can come of this." He released her, the loss of contact a sudden cold shock. "You are a child playing with fire you don't understand." Nicolai's rejection, delivered with the cold finality of a death sentence, echoed in Katia's mind for the next 2 weeks. Absolutely nothing can come of this. He hadn't just denied their connection, he had dismissed her entirely, citing the insurmountable rules of the blood and the perceived loyalty to Axel. It was the deepest wound she could have received, not rejection of her person, but rejection of their possibility. He vanished from the periphery of her life. No more brief, tense encounters near the haven. No more casual Sunday dinners at her apartment, where he would raid the fridge while trading banter with Axel. He was working remotely, buried in the deeper, more dangerous mandates of the clan. The silence was agonizing, a vacuum where electric tension used to live. Katia knew this was more than professional avoidance. It was fear. Nikolai was terrified of what he had confessed on the dance floor, terrified of his own proximity to temptation. He was running, not from her, but from the breach in his own control. That fear was the vulnerability she needed. The games were over. She needed to force a decisive, irreversible move. She knew his hiding place. Within the labyrinthine network of the clan's central haven, deep beneath the city's oldest cathedral, there was a rarely used, heavily warded chamber known as the Stasis Vault. It was where vampires went to meditate, plan, or simply escape the eyes of Antoine and his operatives. It was guarded, remote, and dangerously quiet. Katia spent 2 nights gathering information from her contacts within the Human Liaison Network, piecing together his current operational schedule. Nikolai was preparing for a critical, high-risk assignment, a mission that required days of intense focus and isolation. He would be in the Stasis Vault. The risk of entering the heart of the haven was astronomical. If she were caught by anyone, especially the hostile operative Zakira, she would be killed. But Katia had passed the point of fear. She was driven by the single-minded determination of a woman denied her truth. That Friday, under the guise of an all-night data sweep, Katia slipped out of her safe house. She bypassed the checkpoints using codes she'd meticulously memorized and moved through the subterranean passages. The air grew colder, heavier, smelling of limestone and ancient dust. She located the vault, its iron-bound door set deep into the rock. Inside, she sensed the familiar, cold stillness of his presence. She took a slow, deep breath, pressing her ear to the cold metal. This was no longer a flirtation. This was a challenge. And she knew exactly how to make a disciplined vampire lose control. She needed to expose his raw, ugly truth. She needed him to choose, and she needed him to choose her, even if it damned them both. Katia slipped inside the stasis vault, pulling the heavy door shut behind her. The air was frigid and utterly silent, pressing in on her like a physical weight. The chamber was simple, high, arched stone ceilings, and a single ancient stone sarcophagus that served as Nikolai's resting or planning space. He stood beside it, a figure carved from marble, his eyes closed, his breathing imperceptible. He knew she was there. He had known since she breached the third ward. "You should not have come here," Nicolai said, his voice a low, gravelly vibration that seemed to come from the stones themselves. He didn't open his eyes. "You violate every rule, Katia. Your curiosity will get you executed." Katia dropped the medical kit with a clatter. "You can't hide in here, Nicolai. Not from me, and certainly not from yourself. You said there was nothing between us. You said you couldn't touch me because of the blood. That was a lie." He finally opened his eyes, and the sheer force of his glare was a physical pushback. "It was the truth delivered to save your life. I am a monster and you are human. I cannot afford sentimentality." "You are a coward," Katia challenged, the word sharp and designed to wound his vampire pride. "You are terrified of me because I make you feel something you can't control. You are terrified of the risk, the mess, the possibility of failure. And you hide behind Axel and Antoine's rules." Nikolai's control snapped. The air around him shimmered with suppressed power. In a movement too fast for the eye to track, he crossed the stone floor. He grabbed her, his hand hard and possessive on her jaw, tilting her head back against the cold stone. "You want to know the truth?" he ground out, his fangs elongating visibly, the hunger finally raw and terrifying. "The truth is, I have wanted to taste you since the day I met you. I want to shatter this fragile control. I want to ruin you, Katia." Before she could form a reply, he devoured her mouth in a desperate, punishing kiss. A kiss that tasted of iron and ancient craving. Then the kiss broke, and he found the tender skin of her neck, sinking his fangs deep. It was savage, consuming, an act of self-destruction and surrender. As his venom entered her, a searing, white-hot pain tore through Katia's core. It was not the agonizing pleasure she expected, but an explosive, violent ignition. A deep, dormant energy, cold and dark, surged through her veins, meeting the vampiric venom like two clashing tides. A wave of raw power ripped outwards from Katia, throwing Nicolai back against the wall with the force of a bomb blast. The very stone of the stasis vault ceiling cracked, and the ancient wards protecting the room violently shattered. Nicolai landed hard, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and utter horror. He stared at Katia, who now stood perfectly still, surrounded by the remnants of the fractured stone, her skin glowing faintly with a cold, pale light. He hadn't just fed, he had accidentally awakened something terrible and fundamental inside her. The blast of energy receded, leaving the stasis vault fractured and silent. Katia was breathing hard, her body humming with a terrifying, foreign power that made the hair stand up on her arms. She stared at Nicolai, who was now scrambling away from the stone wall, not with malice, but with a palpable, ancient terror. The silver in his eyes was replaced by a look of profound, self-directed horror. "What did you do?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, staring not at the cracked stone, but at the faint, cold glow emanating from Katia's fingertips. "What have I unleashed?" Before Katia could process the question, a sound cut through the silence. A high-pitched, furious scraping noise coming from the exterior passage. Clan operatives had felt the energy surge. "The wards are down," Nicolai said, adrenaline overriding his horror. "Everyone will be here in moments. If Antoine finds you, he'll terminate you to contain the instability." He knew she couldn't outrun them, not with the energy still spiking. Desperate, Nicolai grabbed her arm, his cold touch grounding her slightly. "There's a maintenance tunnel behind the sarcophagus. Go, now. Don't look back. Don't answer calls. Hide until I can fix this." Katia felt a surge of indignation. "Fix this? You did this. What about us?" "There is no us," he bit out, pain radiating from the words. "I swore I wouldn't drag you into my darkness, and now I've woken something lethal inside you. I damned you, Katia. I can't protect you from this. I can't." A shadow fell across the vault entrance, a lean, deadly figure framed in the doorway. It was Zakira, Antoine's ruthless enforcer, her face a mask of cold suspicion. "Nicolai, what happened here? I felt a catastrophic energy breach." Nicolai, without a second's hesitation, shoved Katia hard toward the dark opening behind the sarcophagus. "Go," he hissed. "I'll handle her." Katia scrambled into the rough, freezing tunnel as Nicolai turned to block Zakira's view, his body language deliberately defiant. She heard the sharp, low exchange begin, but she didn't dare slow down. She fled through the narrow, twisting passages until she finally emerged, breathless and shivering, into the city's sewer system miles away. When she finally stumbled into the relative safety of her own apartment hours later, she felt alien. Her body ached, and when she looked in the mirror, her eyes were no longer the warm brown she knew, but flashed with an unsettling pale silver, a terrifying mirror of Nicolai's own. She was no longer just Katia, and the man who loved her had just abandoned her out of overwhelming guilt and fear. The next 3 days were a blur of cold panic and constant suppression. Katia was a walking electrical storm, desperately trying to keep the volatile energy confined beneath her skin. Objects around her flickered. The apartment lights pulsed when her anxiety spiked. Her phone died instantly if she held it too long. And once, a fragile glass of water cracked just from her gaze. The silver sheen in her eyes was more pronounced now, an undeniable sign of her fundamental change. She was no longer just human. She knew she couldn't maintain the lie, especially not with Axel. He was perceptive, and Nicolai's sudden, total disappearance had already put him on edge. Axel believed Nicolai was just busy with some complicated corporate acquisition, but he kept shooting Katia worried glances, sensing the unnatural stillness she radiated. That evening, Axel found her in the kitchen, staring blankly at the ruined remnants of her favorite ceramic mug, shattered into impossibly small pieces on the countertop. "Hey, what happened here?" Axel asked, his brow furrowing as he noticed the unnatural pattern of the destruction. Katia couldn't hold it in any longer. The fear, the isolation, the sheer terror of her new reality spilled out. She turned, the pale silver flicker undeniable in her eyes. "It was me, Axel. I did this, and I have to tell you everything." She started with the crush, the games, and the forced confrontation in the stasis vault. She detailed the moment Nicolai bit her. Not just a feeding, but a chaotic, powerful exchange, and the resulting explosion of dormant energy. She told him about Nicolai's horrifying retreat and the cold, terrifying glow that now pulsed inside her. Axel listened in absolute silence, his face unreadable. Katia waited for the predictable human rage, the fury that his best friend, his surrogate brother, had endangered and mutilated his sister. Instead, Axel took a deep breath, the tension leaving his shoulders. "I know he's a vampire, Katia." Katia stared, dumbfounded. "What?" "I've known for years," Axel admitted quietly. "Nikolai didn't tell me, but it became impossible to ignore." His best explanation was, "I'm allergic to sunlight and don't sleep much." When he saved my life from a traffic accident 4 years ago, I realized. He swore me to silence, said he couldn't endanger me further, but he's always protected me. Axel walked over and placed his hands gently on her shoulders, ignoring the faint, cold vibration coming from her. "The point is, he always intended to keep you safe from his world. Now he's failed, and he's terrified of what he's done. But that power, it's part of you now. And no matter what you've become, Katia, you're my sister. We figure out how to master it, together." Axel's acceptance wasn't just support, it was a revelation. It gave Katia the strength to move past the victim stage. Nikolai's fear was no longer her problem. Her survival and her new identity were, and she knew exactly where to find the running vampire. Axel's quiet acceptance was a powerful anchor, steadying Katia's volatile new core. The fear was still there, but it was now laced with purpose. She spent a day with Axel, practicing control, learning to suppress the silver light that wanted to bleed from her pores. He gave her the final piece of the puzzle. Nikolai's favorite place of exile, the only spot he went when he needed to feel truly ancient and alone. The catacombs. Beneath the oldest, forgotten section of the city's underground, a place dating back to the first European settlers, lay the abandoned burial crypts. They were neutral ground, steeped in the kind of human mortality that made the immortal feel their age. Katia slipped past the last security grate, the air instantly dropping below freezing. The tunnels were narrow, lined with dusty, stacked skulls and crumbling stone. The darkness here wasn't natural, it was the heavy absence of light, a supernatural blanket. She followed the cold, persistent hum of Nikolai's vampire energy until she found him. He was sitting on the lip of a granite sarcophagus, his head resting against the wall, a Yozge picture of aristocratic misery. He looked exhausted, haunted, his elegant suit dusted with grave dirt. "You followed me," he stated, his voice devoid of surprise. Katia didn't waste time on pleasantries. She didn't approach him for comfort. She approached him for a final reckoning. "You left because you were afraid you ruined me. Axel knows everything. He supports me. Your last excuse is gone, Nikolai." He lifted his head, his silver eyes filled with genuine anguish. "You don't understand. I didn't ruin you. I damned you. That power is unstable, Katia. Antoine will hunt you until he eradicates it, and I can't let him. I can't let my own selfish moment of weakness be the cause of your death." Katia took the final step, standing over him, and pushed her terrifying new identity to the surface. Her eyes flashed, and a cold wave of energy emanated from her, making the dust motes swirl violently around them. This is not damnation, Nicolai. This is me. You gave me a truth I didn't know I needed. You woke the dark part of my soul that was waiting. I am here to choose it. I am here to choose myself. She knelt down, her face inches from his. And I am not here to beg for your love. I am here to ask you to stop running. Stop hiding behind your rules and your fear of failure. She watched the mask of control finally shatter. His eyes went wide, raw, filled with a sudden, devastating honesty. I love you, he confessed, the words ripped from him like a physical wound. I have fought it for years. I didn't run because I thought I'd hurt Axel. I ran because I knew I would love you forever, and I was terrified of losing the one thing I couldn't control. You were the risk, the only one worth dying for. He reached out, cupping her cheek. This time, his touch was gentle, reverent. I will stand by you, Katia. I will fight Antoine. We will master this together. She leaned into his cold embrace, sealing the promise. Their fate was no longer dictated by the clan, but by the volatile, forbidden power that now bound them. The confrontation in the catacombs had been the true turning point, but the battle to secure their future was far from over. Weeks later, the city was still the same, but Katia's world had been entirely remade. She no longer flinched when the pale silver light flared in her eyes. She was learning slowly, painfully, to contain the dark, volatile energy Nicolai's bite had awakened. Nicolai was, as he had promised, a constant presence. He was her anchor and her mentor, dedicating his immortal attention to helping her master the savage nature of her newly inherited power. The most dangerous hurdle had been the inevitable audience with Antoine. It was held in the clan leader's own chamber, a tense, silent standoff where Katia, armed only with her unpredictable power, and Nicolai's silent, unwavering position at her side, faced down the ancient ruthlessness of the clan. Antoine had studied her like a fatal infection, but it was the unpredictability of her darkness that saved them. He was unwilling to risk an internal war that could expose the clan's existence to the human council, or worse, detonate the entire haven. A precarious truce was established. Katia would remain under Nicolai's complete supervision and would dedicate herself to controlling the power she possessed. They had won their relationship by being too dangerous to ignore. One cold night, Nicolai found Katia practicing her control in a secluded chamber, focusing the energy until the stone walls vibrated faintly. She turned, exhausted but resolute, the pale light fading from her hands. You're getting faster, Nicolai murmured, crossing the room to stand before her. He reached into his coat and produced something heavy, cold, and ancient. A beautifully carved amulet of polished, obsidian-like stone, strung on a heavy silver chain. This is an artifact from the elder days, he explained, placing the cool metal around her neck. It doesn't stop the power, but it dampens the volatility. It will give you time to think before you react. Katia touched the cold stone, a physical weight that symbolized the heavy responsibility of their bond. It's a leash, isn't it? Nicolai met her gaze, his expression honest. It's a covenant. It proves to the clan, and to me, that I am dedicated to your survival. I was a coward, running from the mess I created. But you taught me that some things are worth the risk, Katia. You are worth the chaos, the scrutiny, and the fight. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a quiet, profound intensity that spoke of centuries of waiting and a desperate, hard-won future. Their love was forbidden, dangerous, and permanently intertwined with the volatile darkness she now wielded. As they stood there, embracing the weight of their new world, Katia knew they were no longer just teasing or crushing. Their perfectly imperfect, terrifying love had finally begun. Life didn't return to normal. It reorganized itself into a new, dangerous equilibrium. Weeks passed, merging into months where Katia focused intensely on mastering the volatility of her dark awakening. She was no longer just a human liaison. She was a recognized, if deeply distrusted, entity within the clan. Her truce with Antoine held because of two factors: Nicolai's constant presence and the sheer, unpredictable nature of her power, a threat Antoine preferred to monitor rather than extinguish. One clear night, Katia and Nicolai stood on the rooftop of her apartment building, looking out over the silent city skyline. They weren't hiding, they were simply observing their domain. Nicolai presented her with a final physical gesture of his commitment. The obsidian amulet he had given her weeks ago meant to dampen her power. "I want you to take it off," he murmured, his breath cool against her ear. Katia looked up, surprised. "I thought this was mandatory, a symbol of the truce." "It was," he agreed, gently unhooking the chain. The moment the amulet left her neck, Katia felt the familiar icy hum of her power swell, waiting to be unleashed. "But you don't need it anymore. You command it now. You have earned your autonomy, Katia. You have mastered the thing I feared." He took her hands, his silver eyes dark and profound in the moonlight. "I was terrified I had ruined your life, that I had forced you into a destiny that would consume you. I saw the power, and I fled the consequence. But you, my brave, reckless, beautiful Katia, chose the consequence. You chose the darkness, and turned it into your strength." Katia leaned into him, feeling the profound shift in his presence. The centuries of iron-willed control finally eased, replaced by the profound, dedicated loyalty of a vampire in love. "We are in this together," she confirmed. "No more running, no more secrets." Nicolai kissed her, and this kiss was not rushed or desperate, but a silent vow, a communion of two powerful intertwined souls. He had faced his greatest fear, the loss of control and the failure of loyalty to Axel, and had emerged, choosing her, choosing the chaos she represented. As they stood there, embracing the weight of their extraordinary new world, Katia realized her pursuit was over. She had wanted to tease him, to break his control, and in doing so, she had broken the world's rules and found her true self. Their story was no longer a secret desire or a forbidden game. It was a shared, dangerous path, and their perfectly imperfect love had finally begun. Thanks for staying with me till the end. I really appreciate you. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. And let me know what you learned from this story and where you're watching from in the comments.